Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, host of the Riderflex podcast and founder and CEO of our day job recruiting firm, Riderflex. We hope you enjoy this episode. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast for updates and news. If you haven't already, check out the series of books we've published on hiring, interviewing, and overall career advice titled The Riderflex Guide. And finally, today's episode is brought to you by Class 6 Partners. Are you ready to sell your business or raise capital? Class 6 Partners guides you through the entire process, from business optimization to securing the perfect deal. With over $3 billion in transactions, they turn your business dreams into reality. Visit class6partners.com to start your journey today. Tyler Watson on the Riderflex podcast. Good morning, Tyler.
And good morning back to you, my friend. What's happening?
Are you in Kentucky today?
I am. I'm in Louisville at our home office here in Pee Wee Valley area.
Okay, I hear the accent. Are you from there, or did you grow up in?
From New York originally.
What?
I'm just kidding.
I was gonna
Yeah, born
say.
and raised here in Louisville, man, and just moved away a couple times with retail management career, and I always came back. The further north I moved, the more people looked at me strange when I opened my mouth, and the meaner they got too. So I came back home, man. I was done with that.
Gotcha. Are your folks still there?
Yeah, yeah. Folks are still here. They were Tennessee bred, but came up here for jobs and stayed and, laid down roots.
Okay, mom, dad still with us? Still, are they still working? They retired? What'd they do? Give me the parent story.
Yeah, man. Both were like blue collar. Dad was a small one-man veterinarian and still is retiring by the end of this year. And then mom was a career kind of controller accounting position, and she's still doing a little bit of that. But hopefully winding that down. They're both he's in his 70s, golly, and then she's approaching that. So she would sure kick my ass if she knew I was saying that here, though.
Well, you're a young man. He's in his 70s. You must have been. Were you a late arrival for them, or what's the story there?
Yeah, yeah. So they were 38 or I'm sorry, let's see, 38 and 40 respectively when they had me. So definitely
Okay.
later in life. I'm an only child. You'll be able to tell if you haven't already. But yeah, and then I started popping them out the opposite way. I had my first child at 16 years old, and then another at 18, and then I've had another one who's three at around age 30. So yeah, man, just ramping up and doing the exact opposite of what my parents did.
Give me the story. I think you've talked about some of that in social media, but I had a girlfriend in high school. She got pregnant. I mean, what's the give me the scoop.
Yeah, that's how that happens. High school, I guess, really starting kind of giving you my story and how all that, ran about
Yeah.
was wild, man. I was wild as a buck, and through middle school started to kind of get in with the wrong crowd, skateboarding lifestyle, dropped all my swimming and basketball that was probably keeping me out of trouble in a lot of ways, and picked up that more skater lifestyle, and then dropped the skateboarding and just became the recreational lifestyle, if you will. And yeah, man. So just started getting in with people that were doing drugs and criminal activity and so on and so forth. I spent a little time in jail and definitely spent a lot of time on house arrest during that time. But those were formative years for me that helped me realize, I had to go through those things and struggle in order to really kind of pick myself up by the bootstraps and say, I've got kids that, are counting on me. I've made these big adult decisions as a child, and I've got to fill those shoes the right way and do the right things by my kids. So yeah, man, Had the first at 16, and 2 weeks, into him being born, found myself in jail and realized that this is like exactly where I don't want to be. Got out and started working, and found sales shortly thereafter, and started to really model out what I believe to be a positive influence in my kids' lives. And so her and I, my son's mom, are not together, and really were never together. So that was like a 9-year custody battle, which was pretty crazy.
Mm.
But yeah, man, just built on that. Selling shoes was kind of what I did. It was my first sales gig, but I was like a dishwasher before that. So you see my tagline on LinkedIn, dishwasher to disruptor. I like to call it Aqua Chef. I was in the back of house doing that, and my wife now was my shift lead then at Panera Bread, and said, "Listen, man, this ain't working out. You need to go figure something else out." And never knew that her and I were gonna, get together. She was just a manager at that time, my manager at the time. But yeah, man, found shoe sales. The guys hired me for like $7 an hour, but said, "Hey, you can make this whatever you want." And I started learning commission and made like $30 an hour my first couple of paychecks, and the rest is history, man.
So the shift leader now, when you and her started dating, your son was then what, 1 or 2 or something like that?
Yeah, yeah, she's been in, and like even before that, like she was part of his life. She was there at the hospital when he was born because her boyfriend was a really good friend of mine, and so we were all kind of, all
I see.
tangled up. That's how it is in Kentucky, man. I'm surprised she's not my cousin.
And then you have 2 with her, or what's the scope?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we've got all three. So, 2 are hers, and then one,
yeah.
Christopher, my oldest, he's not biologically hers, but certainly is hers, full time, and he lives with us full time and has since 2018. After 9 years of fight in custody, we finally were able to make that happen.
It's nice when you don't have to write that child support check, isn't it?
Yeah, I suppose I never had to, luckily never had to, and have certainly never forced her to do
Oh, I
that.
see. I
And
see. I see.
yeah, just try to be as cordial as possible for him, man, but try to have at least amount of communication with her as possible as well.
Yeah, my kids are grown now, but I remember, once they got past 18, I had 2 sons from my first marriage, and that the relief of knowing, like, okay, I don't have to talk to her anymore. Like, I don't, there's no, I don't have, we don't have to talk about transportation when I'm going to pick him up,
Yeah.
this, that. Like, no, they're 18. Like, she's not calling me unless, I don't know, there's a 911. Like, I haven't talked to her in probably 25 years now. I mean, just,
Holy smokes.
because they're old, they're older. So anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's a wonderful thing. All right, very good. What's your wife do now?
She's stay-at-home mom. She was for a long time though, she was running salons and just like a really good multi-unit manager. She's a great people leader. So she does a lot of fundraising initiatives now and participates, coaching and things like that for our kids' teams. But yeah, she stays at home now, which has been an absolute blessing with a 3-year-old.
Okay. So you found yourself kind of getting into sales. You kind of started to get into your groove. Now, right around then, were there problems with your folks? I mean, were they kicking you out? Were they disappointed? Were they supportive? Was it back and forth? What was that like there when you were getting in trouble? I'm just curious.
Yeah, you're getting into it, man. I would say there was like, like out of the house by 15, kind of on my own in a sense. And then like, but always supportive. Like mom was always supportive and still is to this day, one of my best friends. Not at that time though, for sure. I mean, put her through a lot. So, but yeah, man, I would say like, living with friends, living with, just randoms for quite some time there, just trying to kind of make, figure things out for myself and be out from under, every kid wants that, right? And like I was able to kind of get that experience early on and feel the weight of that. And that's tough, man. Like I tell my kids, like, you're definitely out by 18, but like we're here for you, until then. And wholly stand by that. But yeah, man, I mean, that was yeah, tough. A lot of headwinds there in the relationship with my parents, and not
How's your
sure that I answered
relationship?
the full part.
Yeah. How's your relationship with your dad now?
Non-existent, pretty much. Yeah, they divorced after like 42 years of marriage, so kind of was a taking sides sort of thing. So I was like, need to support my mom in every way possible. So that's what we're doing.
42 years of marriage and they get separated, that's tough, right? I mean, damn. I mean, what it's almost after 40 something years, like, why not just stay married? I don't know. I mean, it must be pretty bad, right? I don't want to get in your mom and dad's relationship, but I think about my own wife now. I'm like, fuck, if I'm like 60 years old and I've been married for 35 years, like I don't, unless I'm living with Satan, I'll just ride it out, right?
I think there's probably a bit of that involved, man. I think,
Uh,
my family has historically struggled with alcoholism, and I know that he, was really wrapped up in that. And there was some, early infidelities in the relationship that I think caused, a lot of animosity and resentment, over the years. And I think it would just all it took was really, a few key occasions and me getting out and the kids growing up to really kind of say, hey, this is just not for us. And
okay.
so yeah, man. And speaking to alcoholism, a great topic for us to talk about today, and I want to celebrate it for myself. Is I'm like 115 days sober, so I'm really
115.
excited about that, man.
All right. All right. Now, was that just a personal goal or you had a serious problem?
I would say it's a little bit of both, minus like serious, the word serious, I would say. It was
Okay.
more of like a lifestyle. I wasn't like, waking up and brushing my teeth with it or anything, man. But I think it was one thing where I was really starting to realize that, hey, I'm doing this daily and I'm not necessarily relying on it, but I'm looking forward to it. And it's something that, and then I asked myself the question one day, I'm like, are you gonna still be a fun guy without it? And I'm like, oh shit, like what like who am I without alcohol at this point? I started to have this like identity crisis. Like, am I going to
Yeah.
be okay? And so I knew at that point in time, and it was very similar in a way from a dependency standpoint to when I quit cigarettes, probably, I don't know, 8 years ago or whatever. I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. All I had to hear was my kids being like, Dad, those are going to kill you. And it was just that one time where I was just like, okay, I'm done with that. And my mom always tells me I got this gene from my grandfather, who was a NASCAR racer and just an awesome dude. And he would just, he said I was going to quit something and he quit it. And that's just what, just what I've done with things in my life and shed those kind of like bad lifestyle, poor choice ways of thinking and doing and just get rid of them.
So what's your vice now? You got to have something. What do you go to? What is that? Oh, liquid death. I see. Okay. All right. All right.
Yeah, yeah, liquid death. No, man. I just something carbonated, to drink. I think right now, just going through these, like I don't crave alcohol by any means. Certainly haven't had a problem. Didn't have DTs or anything, but I think just having something yeah, coffee, a little bit of
Coffee.
that. Yeah, for me, I do definitely do a cup a morning, maybe two. But yeah, I mean, I think,
Okay.
between like just being involved in my kids' lives and being very intentional about that, I think mentally present is super important. I think a lot of people are physically present for their families, but speaking for myself, I wasn't always mentally present when alcohol was involved, and so
Okay.
it always was the easy route to escape for
One more
sure.
question. One more question on alcohol. Tough to be in sales when you don't have a drink at dinner when you're trying to close deals sometimes, right? Did you find was that somewhat at first you're like, okay, shit, I got to take this guy to happy hour. I'm trying to build this relationship, but now I got to, and how do I do that? I can't drink. I mean, at first that was probably a little tricky, wasn't it?
No, man. I mean, much like I just came out with it there, I like that's part of my story, and like I've always believed that in sales, like the best tool in your toolbox is to be able to tell a story,
Ah,
and so
okay.
I try to do it in a way that doesn't make them feel bad for having a drink in front of me. Um, but yeah, man, just ordering in a beer or whatever and cheers it up, and laugh about it and say, it's just something I'm doing, and it's crazy because I've always not done it.
I
But yeah,
got you.
no, I mean, it hadn't been a problem.
Okay. Yeah, you look like you're in shape. Pretty, of course, you're still a young guy. What's your cardio? What's your workout routine? Or are you just naturally thin guy?
Definitely that, but I think that I've always been, well, at least probably I'd say the last five plus years I've been a cyclist. Um,
Ah, okay. All
so
right.
yeah, man, I raced actually for some years,
Cool.
for
All right.
a few teams. Yeah, so road biking, man. So that's been kind of my exercise. I've definitely fallen off this year, but it's something that I love doing, man. I love getting out and see the world through a different lens on a bike, and I never thought I'd be slapping on some spandex outfits to go do it, but that's the way you do
Yeah,
it.
Your Kentucky high school friends are like, bro, what are you wearing? Like, come on, man, you can't. Like,
Yeah, the ones that aren't dead are saying that for sure.
that's pretty good. All right, so you're moving along in sales. You'll get into your career a little bit more. You're moving along. We don't have to. We don't. You're moving up. You're doing different things. You're learning your skill set. But the one I want to ask about is relax the back. So, I worked for a company called. I was the president, actually. You probably don't know this, for a company called Healthy Back, which used to be a competitor to Relax the Back. Um, Cliff Levin, who makes massage chairs in Boulder, is a good friend of mine and actually on the Riderflex advisory board. He worked for Inata, the Sonio massage chair that you guys sold, the Dreamwave or the Sonio or whatever they were calling it. So we have that in common. I noticed that you worked sales at Relaxa back in 2016 to 2018. Um, you remember any of the names from then? Just curious if you remember any people from back then. And who was the franchise owner for the store you worked at?
Well, I'll start with I know Cliff fairly well. I've actually traveled out to his place in Boulder on several occasions, and then also did CES with his team 2 years. So good folks over there, man. And I was always I had an admiration for what they were doing and what they were building here domestically, and how he kind of was like, I look at Cliff almost like American Gangster, like Denzel and American Gangster. Like he went over and like created the relationship and brought the product over. So dude, I have nothing but, the utmost respect for Cliff and what those guys are doing, and have followed Ian for quite some time,
Yeah.
just knowing him, watching Dre and his son excel in the fighting world. So yeah, man, good
Yeah.
people. Uh,
Ian's I just
yeah,
talked
did
to you.
not know you were part of Healthy Back.
Yeah, I was the president for Healthy Back. I worked for Tony Maslish, who was the owner before he sold it.
Yeah.
Ian, I just talked to Ian a while back. He's not with them anymore. He's moved on, but yeah, Cliff and I we go back a ways because see, he was the president for Healthy Back before he started his own company, and so anyway,
Right.
I
Right.
noticed that. All right, so
Yeah.
you small
I,
world.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, small world. I would just say
It
it's
is.
small world.
I'll tell you a little bit about my experience at Relax the Back. So really was part of right before I started Relax the Back, I was with a company called the Medical Institute of Kentucky. It was a for-profit education type place where folks were coming and enrolling in what I would consider school, but fast track schooling, to where you skip gen ed, skip prereqs, and you're right into phlebotomy, EKG technician, things like that. So it was like I started as admissions and moved up to a multi-unit director there, and was building small campuses, satellite campuses around the state, and enrolling kids and getting them jobs right out of the gate. So it was kind of cool, but I really wanted to get back into retail sales because I just loved the aspect of selling a tangible product to somebody. And so found Relax the Back. They were franchisees who had just recently opened their doors. They were, getting some good accolades across the board and building a good customer base locally. The two of them were both physician's assistants. The Marshalls was their name. And so they were from North Carolina, moved here to start the Relax the Back franchise. So they hired me as a salesperson. Yeah, I mean, pretty consistently stayed in the top 25 salespeople in the country for Relax the Back right out of the gate. Loved the whole kind of 24-hour approach, how we can intervene in somebody's spinal health and give them, zero gravity when they're, maybe for 15, 20 minutes a day. But then I get the ergonomic work set up. You can't see what I've got now, but I still live and preach this today. So I've got my cockpit set up and everything like that. So I still have
Yeah.
a very big love for anything and I get attached to whatever concept it is I sell. Like I've got Like I got the Verrier move stool right
Okay.
there. I've
Yeah.
got
All
the
right. Yep.
Verrier.
Yep.
I got
Yep.
the Verrier
I got you.
gravity over there.
Yeah. You're
So
still in it. You're still part of the club.
oh yeah, still sipping the Kool-Aid, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, started selling with them, man, and then of course made great relationships like Corey Brostick, who was working with Cliff for some time over there at Furniture for Life. Then was Fias.
Yep.
But yeah, man, loved that business, dude, and loved the product.
Well,
So the tough part about that was working for franchisees. And I that was my kind of first go at it, but I think that they just clashed, man. I mean, it was a husband and wife running a showroom floor, and I was wanting to be a little bit more disruptive and move up and open more stores and things like that. And I think they were just a little slower moving. So
I got you.
nothing, against them. It was just, yeah, it was just not probably not a good fit over the long term. So right when I hit that, like, I think it was almost a 3-year mark or something like that, I was like, we just kind of mutually parted ways, and I got into Danos.
Yeah. Tell me about it. How'd you get there? How'd you find it? How'd that develop?
Yeah, cool story. So, I mean, I was grilling with a neighbor of mine, and he whips out a bag, like a little baggie of green shit, and I'm like, "You about to sprinkle weed on my kids' foods, man? Like, we're about to eat dinner with our kids." And he's like, "No, man, this is Danos." And I'm like, "Well, what is it?" And so we tried and everything, and everybody loved it. And I'm like, "Dude, I'd buy a bottle of this. Like, let me meet the guy." So they worked together at the bar.
Oh,
At that time, Dan, our founder, was a bartender, bar back kind of guy, and so he calls Dan and he's like, "Hey Dan, this my neighbor wants to get some of your seasonings." Dan's like, "Hey man, I'm cooking salmon up right now. If y'all are still hungry, why don't you come over?" So we literally went over to Dan's house and had after dinner and just sat around talking and got to know each other. I've still got a picture of that night actually, and where I was like promoting for him and stuff on my Facebook. And we just kind of started talking, man. And like Wes, who was my neighbor, was like, "Dan, dude, this guy's one of the best salespeople I know. Like, you should start talking to him about helping expand your business." And which I was very appreciative of. And so I don't know, Dan and I stayed in touch for like a couple weeks, and finally he was just like, "Man, I'll do whatever it takes. Like, I want you to come on." And so
now, well, let
that
me
was
let me
back in like,
pause you. Let me pause you right there. When he
yeah,
called to say, "I want you to come on," was he already packaging and selling, or that wasn't happening yet? Was he? Yeah.
there was he was like in the middle of it. So like there was some formats, but nothing like what we have out today. There was, price pack architecture wasn't even thought of then. It was just like, a bottle here, a bottle there. Hell, I've probably got like an older one. Like this was like the very first bottle with a label on it, but this label was like new.
Where
To
was
that.
he?
So
Did he already have a co-packer relationship, or was he doing that in his garage, or how was he doing it?
he had just recently established a co-manufacturer, real small outfit
Okay.
locally, who we no longer work with. But yeah, they were starting to do that blending
Okay. All right.
process
I was just
together.
kind of wondering. I was kind of wondering where he was at when he called you. Okay. Do you remember what he was doing in revenue when you joined? I mean, was it tiny? Was he like a 50 grand a year, or what? I mean, do you remember how big it was?
That was probably about right. I would say,
Okay.
at its peak, maybe 200,000. By the time we were starting to do like state fairs and things like
Okay.
that,
All right.
top line, that's top line revenue. Yeah.
Could he afford to pay you when he called you? It was, hey, you come help me. I can't really pay you anything, but come help me.
Yeah, no, and I mean that was kind of the rub, man. Was like, we did it for a couple months together. I'm like working every weekend doing these damn festivals in the middle of nowhere, and State Fair was like our big headliner show. We ended up locking in a deal with the local Kroger stores, which was good. About 120 stores brought us into the Kentucky Proud Rack, which so it didn't mean that we got cut into the spice set. We got cut into like this kind of like specialized local set, so it didn't really move the needle. But yeah, so it like, a couple months later, man, I'm like, "Hey dude, like this ain't working. Like I'm gonna support the brand. I'm gonna be an ambassador however possible, but like I've got to find full-time work and get, a paycheck rolling again." Cause I was making good money at Relax the Back. So I was like, I picked up I got an offer to do UPS stores, man, to like starting support and like do business consultation for franchisees there. And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm familiar with franchisee model, UPS solid brand." man. Love the idea that I'm going to be back in a retail store. So started doing that. They quickly kind of moved me into more like franchise sales, but also business consultation at the same time. So I was not only meeting with all the existing franchisees and learning, P&L, balance sheets, and learning how to help them be masters of profit through their profit centers in the store, but also meeting with new prospective franchisees and franchisees who are wanting to expand into new spaces and looking at real estate and all those things. So got like an awesome experience from that
Great
for 3
experience.
years. And
Yep. Great experience. Yep.
yeah, but then one day, Dan calls me, man, and he's like,
I can pay
dude,
you. I
like,
can pay you now.
yeah, he's like, this shit's blowing up. And I'm like, I know, man. I'm like so proud of you. I see that you're like, top seller on Amazon. I see all your videos on TikTok, because during COVID, man, he like blew up on TikTok
Oh,
and he like hit, yeah, that's how it happened. Like he had basically gone on to TikTok and started making recipe videos when he got the call that all of his shows were being canceled.
I
And
see.
so like within a week went viral and just like consistently started putting out recipe video after recipe video, and people just took on. So being a number one seller on Amazon, you obviously start to garner attention from retail. And he's like, dude, you've talked to retailers before, you worked that Kroger deal. Like, do you think you can come back on and try to do something now? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely, dude. I would love to. Like, and he's like, I can pay you. So I'm like, all right, I'm on. So yeah, left UPS, came back over here. We were doing maybe again like maybe I would say we were probably at that time doing $120,000 a month, maybe on retail revenue, maybe probably a lot less than that actually at the time. And we built to like a 200, threshold within the first few months. But we only had like, I don't know, maybe 200 stores, carrying our product nationally at that time. And so I went to work, dude, like I said, talking to all the major retailers and started to, just try to build relationships, pump up our social media, and how digitally native brands are really taking over Amazon, and they're leaking a lot of share from, consumers that were going into stores at one point to buy spices. And so there was also this like pioneer of foodie recipe things going on social media that we were pioneers of. So yeah, man, it was just like all the right things happened at the right time, man. And like 18 months later, we're in over 30,000 stores, and so
Wow.
just built the shit
Great.
out of it. And yeah, man. And I was just really, excited to be a part of that and still am.
Congratulations. So you can buy it direct on the website. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it in the retail stores, right? I guess all three.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're at a store near you, or you can get it on e-com, man. Wherever you want to get the flavor, it's there.
Okay. Do you have co-packers around the country, warehouses? Where are you shipping it from? What's the setup?
Yeah, so we've worked with a number of co-packers trying to kind of optimize and streamline that right now. Our ops team has definitely had a lot to do these last couple of years to scale up, and
No doubt.
that's been a challenge, definitely internally. We have some consolidation warehouses that we use. One in particular up in the Illinois land, Chicagoland area, who
I see.
is a really big partner for Walmart. Because we're coast to coast with Walmart, and they're a strong partner of ours. So. Yeah, man, we got a full distribution network that we, have basically, started from scratch, in the last 2.5 years, call it.
Are you the one that had to sit in the little gray room at Bentonville and close the deal?
Yeah, I do a lot of that, man. I still go out there and totally worth the trip every time, man. But those are underwhelming rooms for what you think you're walking
Totally.
into.
Isn't that the truth? We could do a whole podcast on that. I'll never forget the first time I tried to close a buyer in Bentonville, and I got there. I'm like, this is it. Like this is it. Like this is the room where billions are made. I guess. Totally.
Yeah, no, it's a trip, man. It's a funky little town too, man. I mean, when you fly in,
Yes.
it's like it's always funny. I'll look at my LinkedIn when I get to the airport, and I've got like people like viewing my LinkedIn as soon as I'm landing. I'm like, this place is cult like, dude. They're like fucking like got a microscope on anybody coming in that's a supplier.
Yeah, no doubt. What percentage? I don't know how much you can share. I know it's a private company. What percentage is Amazon versus direct to consumer on your own website versus retail? I'm guessing retail is 80%. I don't know. Like what's the makeup of the business?
Yeah, that's about right. 80/20.
Okay.
It's a tough balance when we were just talking about this yesterday. It's like, if we were to look back in hindsight the strategy could, maybe should have been to really build, the grocery channel and brick and mortar channel east of the Mississippi, where, we are obviously the epicenter where we're from. But then to let, Walmart and e-commerce kind of take care of everything west of Texas or the Mississippi. So it's interesting, man. I mean, there's certainly some headwinds, for us as a small brand with not, as deep a pockets as the really big, Goliath, gigantic companies in our space.
Yeah.
But I will say that one thing I think we've done extremely well is disrupt the sleepy category and really, bring to light that fun can be had in a category that is commodity driven. And so I think that's what we do that our competitors, don't touch is fun. We play with, seasoning in a way, we name it in a certain way. Like we came up with, the cheesening. So it's not seasoning, it's cheesening. And we've got a number of fun play on words with, things we do. It's Dan Good, Dan-tastic, Dan-O might be the best Dan seasoning you ever had. Those are things that I think, our competitors aren't willing to do that we do really, really well.
Yep. I think that's absolutely critical. How many SKUs do you, what is it? 8, 9, 10? What do you got?
Yeah, we got 8 flavors and then, a variety of SKUs within each depending on the size. But really that's another thing I think, as a new brand who's, really building the ship as we fly it, as they say, trying to figure out that, like we mentioned earlier, price pack architecture. And, we certainly don't have that dialed in, but it's something that's, a major priority for us is to figure out, what product belongs in what channel and why and how it's going to complement each channel to make sure that our customers are getting the best buys, across the enterprises.
How's your pricing compared to the competitors? Are you mid-priced? Are you premium? Like, where are you at?
I'd say we're ultra premium. Yeah, I mean, when you look at grocery, we're anywhere hovering from that $7 price point up to $9, depending on the distribution model and markup in between. So for a 3.5 ounce bottle, that's one of the highest dollar per ounces in the category. So that's probably one of those things that I think helps and anchor in the category and justify selling other brands, but also too instills that like, hey, our product is made with all natural ingredients. It's lower in salt, so you're getting a lot more spices and seasonings than you are salt and sugar. We don't do sugar in our products.
Is that one of your key things that you pitch? That's one of your big messages, no sugar?
I would say that it's probably not as big as it maybe should be or could be. I think because we've identified this fun factor as kind of the number one, the health attributes come second to that because, health attributes can be looked at as a kind of a me too, sort of play. Everybody's kind of doing that. That's a proposition that a lot of people are really trying to play on. So I think we've identified, that kind of fun and frisky sort of mentality to be a bigger differentiator in the category than really talking to the health attributes. Although I will say that, we justify the price point with the ingredients that we use.
Okay. So if I'm using Montreal steak or Lowry's or whatever, I'm just thinking about the stuff that's in my cabinet. Not to bring up your competitors. I mean, everybody knows who they are. If I buy a bottle of that compared to one of yours is 25% higher, 30% higher, something like that, 40% higher price.
Theirs is going to be a whole lot higher. So, like, just to give you a for instance, like you're looking at probably, depending on the competitor, they're going to be 120 to 180 milligrams per quarter teaspoon of sodium, whereas we're going to be 50 milligrams or less. So it's exponentially less salt. So the best way to put it is like it's more flavor and less fillers. You're going to get more of the herbs and spices in our bottles than you are in anybody else's because they're going to pack theirs full of salt and sugar and MSGs, maltodextrin, and all that stuff.
Is that how they keep it cheaper?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. That's interesting. Okay, thanks for the education on that. So that's how they keep it cheaper. I thought maybe they were able to keep it cheaper because they're just mass distribution, so they're just selling so many more units that they can be cheaper. But it's also because of the ingredients, I guess.
Yeah, I would say economies of scale is certainly at play for the bigger players like that. But yeah, I mean, from an ingredient perspective, man, I mean that's why we are ultra premium relative to the rest of the category is because salt is a whole lot cheaper than buying garlic, onion, lemon peel, orange peel, rosemary, all of those things that we use in our blends.
Okay. All right. Very good. I I have to admit, I haven't tried it now because you've been on the show. Do I get like are you going to ship me some samples so that I can talk about it on my podcast, or what are we doing here? We're going to make a deal or what?
Yeah, yeah, you got a deal, my friend, man, because you don't
Uh,
know till you damn know.
yeah. Oh, I like that. By the way, the fun part I think is critical. I mean, what you're doing with the marketing and the messaging and the fun and you and your personality, all that definitely makes a difference because it's cool, it's fun, it's neat. There's a story. I think a lot of people would be willing to pay a little bit. Well, obviously, a lot of people are willing to pay a little bit more for that. It's funny your packaging, not funny. It's interesting. Your packaging. It has the Huckleberry Finn guy on there, kinda, right? It looks like he's,
Yeah.
like blue collar, lower middle class kid, coming from the fishing pond. But meanwhile, it's premium price. Like you would think there'd be a guy with a bow tie or something at a fancy dinner. But hey, it's working.
I think
It's working.
that's the mystique that yeah, no, I mean I think that's the mystique that surrounds the brand that, quite honestly, like we have said, how do we want our packaging to change over the course of time because we know it needs to evolve. I think in some aspects it's like it does lose itself on the shelf in some ways where competitors stand out in a lot better ways. And we haven't had a big, brand agency redo our packaging. We've wung it, since we've had it. So,
Yeah.
those are things we're considering right now, but we don't want to lose that identity that people, absolutely love about our brand. So I think, when you sell at a premium already, you don't have to justify your premium. You're already selling at a premium. So
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that we don't want to lose sight of is how important it is to keep the roots and understand that people are just going to buy that because it's fun and disruptive, and they're going to pay a premium for it because they feel connected with it.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely critical. You got a bunch of Facebook followers? How's your social media following for the company?
Yeah, we've got over 11.5 million followers across channels, man. I mean, we're at like
That's
four or
great.
5 million on yeah,
That's great.
Facebook's like 2 million or something like that now. It's pretty big.
And you let your fans post recipes and things using it and all that. I think that's great.
100%, man. Community engagement and recruitment is our number one, focus, from bottom of funnel standpoint. I mean, we've even got, I can tell you this because I was like the 30th member on it, but it was Danos Fanos is our special Facebook group. And it's like just a concentrated group of loyalists who love the brand, promote the brand, post recipes, share among each other. They get, early access to all new flavors, sweepstakes, things like that exclusive to them. So,
Love
that
that.
group is like up to 300,000 members or something like that alone. And it's a private group. So, I mean, yeah, huge community management presence here in the office.
Are you over the social media and the marketing, or who runs that?
Yeah, no, actually, it's funny you asked. I'm in charge of sales, and so I had a right hand man for the first 2 years of building this thing, and I would consider him like business development. Like, I close the deal. He kind of helps manage the relationship after that, make sure we're in the right place at the right time, all that. But we moved him over to brand management, and now he heads up all social activities. So I think we really have a good sales mindset inside of the marketing department now that makes, I think, a very effective machine that understands the retail importance. Whereas a lot of social media management folks don't necessarily, in my opinion, and that's not shitting on anybody, don't necessarily understand the retail component and how to support it.
I can tell you how to support it. When the buyer from Walmart calls you, pick up the phone and you say yes sir, no sir.
That's right. Actually, not no, sir.
Uh, right. Yeah, exactly. I'm guessing you're careful not to let too big of a percentage of your overall sales get into Bentonville because then you're being controlled by one vendor. I'm sure you guys have talked about that, but I've just seen that happen so many times. So you can tell I have experience with that area. So critical to stay diversified through your grocery and your retail chains, or else you got one guy pushing you around, which is never fun. So anyway.
Yeah, it's tough to ignore them, but it's certainly a priority to build outside of that because it's it is a very valuable business, but it can be pretty volatile if you start making the wrong people upset. But we've got a really strong relationship with our buyer at Walmart and feel like we're looked at as a strategic partner to build the category together and are working on some really exciting innovation for the future years to come. So we believe that we're going to be a legacy long lived on Walmart shelves.
What's the plan? I mean, are you? What's Dan's last name? Dan, the owner.
Oliver.
Okay, Dan Oliver. Is he
Yeah.
100% owner is he 100% owner? Have you guys taken on cash or you have investors? I don't know. What's the makeup of the cap table?
Yeah, it's a little spread between a bunch of local guys really right now.
Okay.
It's Dan's a big part. We've got a CEO who was part of who basically was the CEO of a marketing agency that helped Dan kind of build his social media presence and online presence and things like that. Who's a pretty large partner in it. And then really just a bunch of we've got a former NFL guy who was one of our first investors. We've got a car dealership guy. We got a
Cool.
CFO who came from a M&A background. So yeah, man, we've got a hell of a team from a pretty diverse background behind us right now that have bootstrapped our way here.
Okay. Sounds like we'll call it angel and family investors. Who's in charge? Is Dan the CEO, the day-to-day CEO?
Yeah. I mean, we've got kind of an executive team that really works together as a well-oiled machine to, try to give our team strategic direction and figure this thing out as we go along. None of us have CPG experience really, so I
Well, you
think
do
that's one
now.
thing that lends to. Oh yeah, no doubt, man. But I think that's one thing that lends to an out of the box approach and gives us maybe a competitive edge, but also a little bit of a disadvantage in some aspects. But we're figuring it out along the way.
Are you raising cash? Are you going to sell? Are you just having, is it a lifestyle business? I mean, obviously these investors are going to want to see their return eventually, but I mean, what's the plan?
Yeah, I mean, I think all those are options. I don't think we've necessarily counted any of them out. We certainly want to continue building this for, if I say short term, I mean, 3 to 5 years. But yeah, I mean, nobody's, I'd find it hard pressed that we would say no if somebody came along and offered the right amount.
I'm surprised. I'm sure
But
he's got,
that's,
I'm sure Dan's got phone calls already. I'm sure he's had some phone calls.
yeah.
Yep. Okay. All right. Who are the two or three big giant companies that own these seasoning? Like, are there two or three like huge people that just buy up all the little ones? I don't even know.
Yeah, I would say like the three that come to mind for me are McCormick, obviously,
McCormick. Okay.
B&G Foods, and then I'll tell you a really impressive player in the space right now who are near and dear friends to us are the Kinders.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yeah. I mean, if the everybody always asks me if Riderflex. I don't know if I don't even know if you know this, but our day job at Riderflex is we're a recruiting and staffing firm, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we place candidates into companies for a living beyond the podcast. And people will ask me, they'll say, well, is Riderflex for sale? And I always say, hey, for the right number, everything's always for sale, my friend.
That's right.
Did you
That's
score
right.
yourself and did you score some equity in this deal? I don't know how much you can share. Are you on an equity play? Are you on a vesting schedule, Tyler? What's happening here?
Yeah, I'll tell you, like Danos will take care of me for the long run of things. So yeah, we've got a good little deal worked out.
That's good. Well, if McCormick's writes a check, then maybe you can, you got a little payday coming, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, my friend. So danosseasoning.com, right? danosseasoning.com. You can order directly from the website. Or is there a benefit to order from Amazon versus the website, or the same price, or what's the scoop there?
I think there's, at times there's going to be deals on the website. There's going to be deals on Amazon. I mean, it's really, we try to be competitively priced, relative to our portfolio every single day, across the board, but definitely some key selling occasions or key, occasions during the year, grilling, tailgating, holiday, the obvious are going to be, some of the best times to buy Danos. But then New Year, New You is another one coming up this, in 2025 that we want to be a big part of because we want to bring back to life those value propositions from a health standpoint that, kind of re-educate consumers about Danos.
I like it. I like my stuff spicy and a little warm. Which one should I order?
Well, you don't have to order anything, man. We're gonna get a box right over to you, but we'll make sure there's plenty of spicy in there for you. We'll
Uh,
spice your life up a bit.
okay, I like lots of seasoning on my stuff. My wife, I'm always telling my wife, I'm like, come on, man, I gotta have some flavor in there. I mean, you go to these restaurants, it's like
Yeah.
this
We
stuff's got
can't
no
we can't have
taste.
a blandemic.
No, man, no.
Yeah.
I love you. I love these terms. You come up with all those, or is it the marketing guys? But it's a team effort.
Blandemic is mine. Yeah, Blandemic is mine for sure, man. I popped that one out in a year or two. Well, shortly after COVID, when it was acceptable to start talking about it in a fun light. That's what we do, man. We push the boundaries a bit.
Congrats to Danos and your whole team, but for you, I think as a young man, you're still a young man. For you and your story, you could have. I'm sure you've thought about this many times. You could have easily gone down the wrong path, my friend. You could have stayed going down the wrong path, right? You could have done some jail time and then done some more jail time, and then it could have easily went the other way for you, brother. Super easy. Could have went bad, but you're a great example of, yeah, even if you make some early bad choices, like you can turn things around if you really want to. You can turn things around. So congrats to you for doing that.
Oh, thank you, man. I mean, I tell, my kids all the time, I'm like, you can take the easy way or the hard way, but it's really hard to come out the other side when you take the hard way. And I got lucky, man. I had mentors along the way that I knew were good people to be in my life. And those are keys, man. Mentors are like the best thing you can have, or people that you look up to that, have what maybe you want in life and things like that, and not necessarily being envious of them, but being hungry to learn and thirsty for knowledge and understand how you can do it in your own way. Authenticity is key, man. But learning from those people and keeping an ear to the ground on what they're doing and how they're going to guide you in your life, even if it's just as small as how you should have a hard conversation. Yeah, man, those are the things that I try to instill in my kids of like, hey, you can figure this out, and you can make it a lot easier on yourself. We're our own worst enemy in a lot of ways.
Any last minute words for the young person that is down and out and pissed off at life and just found out his girlfriend's pregnant and he didn't finish high school and he's mad at the world and he's playing some video games because
Yeah,
he don't
man.
know what the hell, he doesn't know what else to do right now because he can't figure it out. Anything else you want to tell that young man?
Yeah, I think, for me, probably the biggest thing, and I'm not a religious guy, but I'm certainly spiritual. And I would say if you can find something to center yourself on and just, have somebody to talk to, whether it's a therapist, don't be too proud. That's the main thing, man. We can't do this by ourselves. And, if you can just swallow that big pill called pride and say, I can't do this by myself, I need help. That's something I wish somebody would have told me a lot earlier on. And I wish I would have listened if they did tell me. I'm sure somebody told me.
Tyler, thanks for being on the Riderflex podcast, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, brother. It's been fantastic. I'll talk to you soon.